today. Wanted to focus a little bit on some supply chain issues throughout the industry so that folks are aware. But we do have plenty of other content as well. That'll just be one of the big ones. First, some good news. Response is up even over last year across the board. Average gift does continue to be higher, generally speaking. So revenue is up. Now that is, I will say that is absent response data. This is all caging data. And so if people were mailing more, as it appears they were, this response goes up. So we talked with a number of our leaders here at Moore, talked with some other organizations, a number of the other co-ops, and there are some general trends that folks are seeing that July and August in particular were a bit soft on the mail side of things. We're not entirely sure why this was. Maybe it was pre-Delta, people saying, you know, I am going to be getting out of the house, I'm going on that vacation, and I'm not here to pick up my mail. Could have been school worries, not sure. But definitely some softness in July and August, not back down all the way to 2019 levels, but certainly not 2020 levels. And then stabilizing in September, and then generally speaking, a strong October. Anyone seeing anything different from that, or is that what you're seeing as well? Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to assume that that's the general trend, and we actually collected some quotes, and in next month's meeting, I will try to put together kind of a list of what all of the different organizations are seeing. My apologies, it's kind of late breaking today. So supply chain update, as I know a lot of people are facing this, we are seeing high market volatility. The paper mills are running at full capacity and still having some challenges picking up on demand. The paper shortages are a real thing, as are the capacity shortages. And so freight surcharges and prices increases do continue to go up. So as an enterprise, what we're doing here at Moore is that we're working to make sure that we have adequate supply for all of our clients. We're working to try to tighten down forecasts on what 2020 looks like. You're going to hear this refrain throughout these slides. Planning ahead really helps, secure supplies, helps people get things from overseas, helps across the board. So planning ahead more than ever is necessary. And we're also doing a lot of testing to see, you know, if this premium is harder to get, is it absolutely necessary? Do we have to only send it to 40% of our people? One of the things, you know, THD, as you may have heard, just joined the Moore family of companies. And one of the things that they do and Simeo Cloud does is really strong premium versus non-premium modeling. And so you can model to see, hey, who actually needs the premium in order to give, and who's giving perhaps despite the premium, and I don't have to do it. So trying to test to make sure that those sorts of things get out, testing different types of paper. You know, we were just able to secure a supply of paper from China. It's on a boat here, and we'll talk about those boats in a second, but it's not a paper that we've used before. And so you need to make sure that it works on the machines and is of the quality that people expect. And talking with suppliers around the industry, this is the type of testing that a lot of folks are doing. So on importing, there are port challenges. It's not as bad as once it was. The delays aren't as erratic. And so, but they are still there. And so the delays are things that you can plan around, but it still will take perhaps 4 weeks to get into the ports, especially into LA. A lot of these materials are now going elsewhere. People are plotting courses, offloading in Canada first. Some are going through the Panama Canal to offload at New Orleans. We are trying to get some of our shipments to come straight into Baltimore, where we have production facilities. And so all of this is very fungible. But because in order to get through the ports, they're having to hire more people, paying more, trucking costs are going up. These costs are consistently a challenge. So for bringing in things from overseas, our Heartland Direct company, which works with our plant in China, is recommending to order premium components as early as possible and not to make changes in that process. It used to be, oh, we're 3 days late, we can make up for that on the back end. There isn't this ability to make up for things like there once was, even earlier this year. And so the production timeline looks the same for production, same at sea, but greater delay, about 4 weeks in port. Our domestic team for sourcing premiums is also recommending planning ahead. That's our Trost marketing team. They don't have as high velocity of premiums, but usually higher value premiums. And so one of the things that you can do is test things like, hey, what if instead of I did a front end premium, I did a back end premium with a higher value item. And so that's something that may be able to be produced domestically. They said inventory levels are changing. There are some things that are, it's a t-shirt, we just have to put the logo on it, that sort of thing. But figuring out what those inventories are from location to location is always a challenge. So 2 clients that we worked with, both wanted to be anonymous, but both had a 15-day lead time for apparel products. And we were able to bring those in on time and on budget. Both have reordered. And so there is this ability to swap out premiums if that's something that folks want. Looking at the postal side of things, Production Solutions wanted to recap our postal rates. We know about the rate increase in January and August, really unprecedentedly high rates, and that's looking like it will continue. The next rate increase will be July of next year, and it's looking like that'll be about 6% for USPS marketing mail for letters and about 8% for marketing mail flats. Most of what we send in the letter category will get that 6% increase, but things like calendar mailings will go into that high density, into the mail flat product side of things, and so those will be 8% increases. We are going through legal means to stop this. There are attorneys general who are saying, hey, Postal Service law says you can't increase beyond the rate of inflation or authorized by Congress. This whole idea of trying to play catch up with rates isn't authorized by Congress. And so there are some postal reform measures also going through Congress that may be able to address this. But it's likely that there's no one that is going to cut us a check for increases, even if these rate increases are overturned. We're going to have to be paying them in the meantime. And truth be told, the scarce commodity right now is the mail date. With all of the supply challenges, you want to make sure you're making the mail date. A bit of self-promotion. One of the things that we have as an advantage at Moore is this large scope, 10 production facilities, and more ordering. And so we are thankfully able to get into line a little bit earlier and keep commitments with clients and suppliers. So we haven't had anything fall through, and we're darn sure that we're not going to let that through on our watch. Mail delivery has slowed. First class this year has increased by almost a day. Marketing mail has increased by about half a day. That said, we saw this huge jump up in September, October last year as the USPS was prioritizing packages and the influx there. We're high for 2021, but we're not as bad as we were last year. November, December, and February of last year, February of this year, were record high in terms of length of delivery rates. So USPS is going with the, let's call it unique business strategy of raising prices on a product that is not doing it, that a service that isn't as high quality. We'll see how that works out for them. Looking at the Board of Governors meeting that's happening right now, one of the slides they covered was that marketing mail is still up, but first class mail is down 3%, and that's where they get their highest profit margin. And so they're not only neglecting first class mail, but actively dissuading it at this point, which we're hoping that some of these regulatory reforms, that some of these court cases, those sorts of things will be able to go through and put them on a steadier footing. Raw materials, there's a lot of detail here, but the arrows are probably the most important thing. Paper, label, ink, window film, foil, adhesives, aluminum, all of them are seeing pricing increases. And you're seeing this in the for-profit sector as well. You're seeing this at the gas station. There is a bit of inflation right now caused by these supply chain challenges. The good news on a lot of it is that there's something called the Whiplash Effect, where as things go through the production system, there'll be a trough of ordering, and so people pull back on supply, and now there's a glut of ordering, and now people are raising prices. That does come to a logical end. That said, we do expect a lot of these price increases to continue into next year as the whiplash comes back to normal, thinking of that, how a whip would work there. So we continue to produce, we continue to order, transportation, labor, all of those things that are consistent across for-profit and nonprofit are impacting here. We are seeing pricing increases. So zooming out to the overall big picture on all of this, planning ahead, planning for cost increases. We're trying to pass along as few of these as possible. That said, the production is predicated on all of these source inputs. So there are some cost increases coming, and that's across the sector. We had a couple of folks who said, your prices are increasing. We're going to shop this around. And they came back and said, you're doing the same price increase that everyone else is. The mail date is precious, so trying to get last minute changes out of the system is important, kind of a variant on planning ahead. We're actively working with a lot of our clients to try to find alternatives, especially on premiums, testing a lot of different things, thinking about different package types, and mostly getting the most out of each communication. So you probably saw our Ask String webinar a couple of months ago. If not, let me know and I'll hit you up for that. It's also on the webinars page of our website. But we're actively looking at what Ask Strings look like in an inflationary environment. There's some evidence, some very early evidence. So take it with a grain of salt, but some very early evidence that gifts are going up without changes in Ask Strings. People see the value of $1 perhaps declining a little bit and thus giving more to organizations, or they could be saying, there's greater needs, so we're giving more to organizations. And we want to be able to meet donors where they are in terms of giving. So that's one way to get the most out of communication, modeling to make sure you're getting either reduced quantity or the right quantity, sending the communications to the right people. Customizing. Customization is still very low cost comparatively, and it helps you, if the precious thing is the mail date, you want to make sure that everything in that mail date is customized to the person so you can maximize that mail date. I did want to put in contact information for our specialists on that. Each of these people helped me come up with these slides. We did an internal version of this on Monday to make sure that all of our folks understood the environment. We have internal premiums, domestic premiums, postal experts, raw material experts overall. And of course, if you need anything, feel free to reach out to me and I will get you the right expert at the right time. Any questions on any of that? I know I sped through a lot of different supply chain challenges. Okay. Some of the other things, we've seen some changes in financial technology. Discover, the people with the Discover card, and 451 Research put together a study looking across countries. US, more than 1,000 respondents, looking at how financial technology has changed during the pandemic. And US, 38% of the people who use digital payments started since March of last year. So big part of digital payments thrive in the United States. We do still lag. You'll see that chart in a little bit, but a significant number of our digital payment folks came in recently. And so the donors that we have coming in more likely to be giving digital payments in other parts of their lives. You also see this increase in digital commerce, curbside pickup, delivery, opening new accounts. These are new adopters. So a third approximately of the people who are doing mobile ordering or delivery or curbside pickup in the United States started since the pandemic. There's an increased comfort with online payments. A lot of folks are saying they're not going to go back. 2/3 of people say that we started shopping online, we're going to keep shopping online. And that skews even higher among younger people. I would say only 41% of baby boomers, but honestly, if you can get 41% of people to change their behavior on any issue at any time, that's still pretty remarkable. And so there's then this stickiness of online payments. Even if you're not going to shift all of your shopping online, you're going to continue banking and mobile ordering and mobile delivery and curbside pickup. You may still eat in restaurants, but you're going to take advantage of the things that you took during the pandemic. We do still lag the world in 90 days usage in digital payments. Only 39% of people say they've used them in the past 90 days. But this means that it could be our moment for monthly giving, especially. People may be more open to auto pay than they ever were. They may be more likely to switch from credit card to EFT than they were before. And so we are definitely taking these data in and putting them into the modeling, especially around who's likely to become a monthly giver, because those are largely credit card or EFT-based transactions. Any questions on those? Okay. Some pandemic giving data, not the bad kind of giving data, the good kind of giving data. And this comes out of China. And the reason that it's an interesting study is part of what folks have been asking for is what's the crystal ball for post-pandemic giving? And China's a bit unique in that they've had their peak and the pandemic, while not gone there, is significantly less impacting. And so looking at donation behavior in China, they did a study during peak pandemic and then after the peak. And they were looking specifically at social information. And so the way the study was set up is that you had I think it was 100 yuan in an account for yourself and 100 yuan in an account for charity. And you could decide whether to change the allocations of those. And the positive social information is, hey, someone like you just changed a bunch of their yuan out of their personal account into charity. And the negative social information is, hey, someone just like you took money from the charity bucket and gave it to themselves. And so they asked, what's your donation level? Gave them the social information and saw if it changed their behavior to know that other people are either giving more or giving less. Very common type of social proof that we talk about, so many other people are doing this, uptake rates, those sorts of things. I always think of the McDonald's, 99 billion hamburgers served. Okay, yeah, maybe I'll try one. So bits of good news. First, good news is that there wasn't a significant difference in unprompted giving at peak pandemic or after pandemic. This is good news because it meant that people were just as charitable after the peak of the pandemic as they were during the peak of the pandemic. And we've seen that COVID bump. And so this gives us some evidence that people are going to stick around. However, there's some changes in how social information affects after the pandemic, there was no overall difference between positive and negative information, but there was some interaction around the timing. And so when we were at peak pandemic in China, the positive donation condition, the social information that other people are giving more during this time had more influence, got more people to give more often. And then as the pandemic went away, the negative social information became more salient. And so people were more likely to be dissuaded when they found out, oh, other people aren't giving right now. And so the big part of this message is that you want to keep positive social information out there. One of the things we've had the pleasure of working on is a Psa campaign with the Nonprofit Alliance. And so that's going to be going on around the country, working with TCM, or video production, and First Degree for PSA placement. Those ads are going to feature all of the good things that nonprofits are doing around the country as a way of encouraging people to donate during this holiday season. So we're excited for that. We want to keep that positive donation information out there. But so positive is always good to get people positive social information. But people are more pliable to the negative side of things when it's not the pandemic. They're looking for, you could say they're looking for a signal to stop their giving, even though that giving is remaining consistent without that social information. So some good news there with a little bit of bad news thrown in. Now our ever popular potpourri section. Sorry, any questions?
Sure.
Okay, potpourri section. There was a study that came out that found that if you looked at memes during the COVID pandemic, and really who didn't, it helped you cope. And so respondents said that if you viewed a funny meme or a cute meme, it lowered stress levels and made people more confident in their ability to face the global health crisis. And so I made this one for us. This one, I guess, gets to be a meta meme because it's a meme about memes and mental health that helps your mental health. Take that, Inception. Couple other ones, people lining up for Black Friday sales. Alas, they are still on the ship. And package tracking is getting better and better. This is the 4-week delay in ports that we talked about. So little meme mental health for you this morning. Actual good news, more than half of the eligible people in the world have now received at least 1 dose of COVID vaccine. That we hit that landmark November 4th. Very exciting. Here in the US, that means that 57% of people are fully vaccinated, another 9% are partially vaccinated. We're at 66%. We're coming for you, Bahrain. We are going to get that. We're going to get more people vaxxed and more people healthy. The downside that a lot of our organizations deal with is that there's a real divide between rich countries and poor countries in terms of vaccine access. So the average person in a high-income country has 1.4 doses in them. The average person in a low-income country has 0.05 doses in them. And so a lot of our organizations and a lot of the nonprofits out there are working to make sure that this vaccine apartheid doesn't last, and that we're able to get life-saving measures out to the world. If we saw nothing else during this pandemic, it's that our borders will not protect us from diseases that come from places that aren't here. And so we can fight bugs over there so we don't have to fight them over here so that they don't mutate, along with also obviously being very good for the people in those countries. Other COVID good news, Pfizer has a pill that they are working on to try to get to the FDA. FDA could be weeks or months on this, but the pill once taken, reduced the hospitalization and death risk by 90% of COVID. So this is one of those things, along with vaccinations, those two things working together could turn COVID into something that is, yes, always with us, but is more like the flu than a highly contagious, very deadly pandemic. So good news there. Other good news, we here in the nonprofit sector are mental health experts and workers. And the reason I say that is that this study shows that when you don't hear other people's stories during the pandemic, when you shut yourself off from compassion, you threaten your own mental health and you fray your social connections that help with your well-being. So people who are getting out there and showing compassion in this time of need are mentally healthier on average. And we at nonprofits and those who help them are the people who help people show compassion during this time. So keep it up, keep our messages out there. Wouldn't be complete if I didn't talk about the Facebook rebranding that recently happened. They were looking for a brand that would convey more trust, and it perhaps isn't as sullied as the Facebook name is. So they went with this. More seriously, from Facebook, they announced yesterday that they're removing some ad targeting options, and the ones that they're removing are the ones that we in the nonprofit sector would need most. Things around political views, things about identity like religion, things about sexual orientation. And it's understandable that they're doing this in that this is considered sensitive information under GDPR. It's kind of odd that they still had this as a targeting option. But what it means is if you are working on World Leukemia Day, you can't target people who have expressed an interest in that topic because it's a disease, because it's personal information. And so this is one more step as to why you need to own your own data, why you want to make sure that you're appending data and gathering your own data mix on your constituents so that you can target as you need to. We think that Facebook is going to be more and more, especially with this news, a platform for delivering ads, but less and less the algorithmic driver of those ads. That is, you won't go in and use Facebook's targeting because they don't have donation data. You want to use something that has donation data. You're going to do your modeling outside of Facebook through something like Simio Cloud or another platform like it. And then you're going to take that and put it into Facebook for targeting, which gives a perfect segue to, on November 6th, we're working with the Nonprofit Times and Save the Children to do a webinar called Programmatic Advertising Across Channels for Any Budget. You can register at this link. It's probably easier to go to our webinars page, easier to remember. But there's this idea that TV advertising is beyond most nonprofit budgets. And honestly, it is a very expensive way to advertise if you go into traditional direct response TV. That said, connected TV and targeted digital advertising can reach your new donors, lapsed donors, upgradable donors, and work alongside other media like mail campaigns, like email campaigns. So Save the Children is going to talk about what it's done for them. We're going to talk about how the data is pulled from the Moore side, and then DDTV, which does our TV targeting, is going to talk about how to run these type of campaigns. And so we're very excited for this. Hope it's helpful for a lot of folks. We want to get that surround sound for people, where they're hearing about you on TV, in the mail, online, and are able to hear either about the impact they can have or the impact that they just had to reinforce their decision. So, any questions on any of that? Or things that you'd like covered on future? If there are, feel free to reach out to me. I'm at nellinger@wearemore.com. and happy to answer any questions that you have, or more likely, find an actual expert to help you from any one of our enterprises.